Hey guys, before this video starts, I just have a request that wherever you were before, wherever you're planning to go after this, bring your attention fully, completely to this video, this moment. And to do that, one technique from Vipassana I'll borrow. Just focus your attention for 5 deep breaths completely on your breath, right? How is it entering your nose? How is it exiting your nose? Just 5 deep breaths, complete focus, and bring yourself back to this moment.
I'm from this region between Delhi and Jaipur called Shekhawati.
Shekhawati?
Yeah.
That's how like you're Shekhawat?
Yeah.
Is it?
Because I'm a descendant of Lord Shekhawat, who founded Shekhawati.
Wow. So which town is it? Which place is it?
So the whole place is like, it's a group of towns. But I come from this specific district called Jhunjhunu.
And then you got into all the art curation and museum stuff, right?
Yeah, that's true, because that's what I usually tell people, that for me history was a way of life. It's in the family, it runs in the genes, it runs in the blood.
Oh.
And my great grandfather would take me to all these places in the village and to his fort and various other monuments around. And I grew up listening to his stories, pre-independence stories.
Wow. Where did you hear about Vipassana for the first time?
Well, my friends have been practicing Vipassana for a few years now.
Okay.
And I sort of knew when they went for Vipassana because they were not in touch during those 10 days. And I didn't quite take a lot of interest in it still. But a friend I met during one of my travels in Bangalore happened to go for Vipassana and explain what it actually is and really pushed me to go into it. I think I sort of was interested in Vipassana, and then this friend of mine really pushed me to do it. And then I started reading an article about Yuval Noah Harari, the famous writer, and he practices Vipassana for I think 3 months every year.
Okay.
He's huge on Vipassana, and how he's given a whole explanation of how pre-Vipassana his life was very messed up, and how post-Vipassana there were a lot of things which have improved in his life in terms of clarity and writing and how he perceives history, and so not just personal but also like professional.
I'm trying to understand that where exactly that first question, right? Or there is something that we are looking for which pushes us into all of these things, or even makes us take some level of interest in anyone talking about these experiences. What's that?
Well, honestly, I think it must have happened in my mother's womb. Because
is it that back, really?
Yeah, because my mother is deeply spiritual, and that is how we were raised. So we were raised on spiritual teachings and how to become a better human being. It was always a really important part of us growing up. So somewhere that seed of curiosity about yourself and the path of self-realization was always there as a kid. So there's no particular one memory to go back to. But I think what started happening when I started adulting is that you come across a lot of struggles in life. And at one point in my life, I lost all faith.
You're talking about religious faith?
No, just a spiritual faith that there is someone looking after you. There is a bigger energy that works behind everything that's happening. And that was a trigger to go back to spirituality even more intensely, because this time it was not so much like a passive way in which you were just being taught and raised, but it was more an active, intense feeling inside, a need to understand who you are and why you are on this planet. Then that's when I started experimenting with various types of meditation. So I tried transcendental meditation, and then I tried pranic healing. So I tried these two before I experimented with Vipassana.
So was there like a really rough patch that you're trying to get out of, or something that was really taking you off road, or something was really hurting you that much that you thought that this somehow I need to figure out what's happening with me, or why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, or like...
Yeah, I think all of us go through a lot when we are young, especially when you're sort of adulting and you're still figuring out a lot of things in your life. I think for me, just before Vipassana, that crisis in faith had already happened a long time ago. So vestiges of that were there. But more than anything else, I was fed up of the constant emotional roller coaster I was on. So you're constantly feeling happy and sad, and it's a vicious cycle at the end of the day, even happiness. And I know that happiness is like the goal in life, but I was fed up of intense emotions. I wanted to feel relief. That's what I was looking for, relief and just peace. For me, peace was far more important than happiness. When my friend was explaining, he had just come out of Vipassana and he was explaining to me what it was about. And I think at that point in my life, I was really fed up of these gurus.
What
and this entire sham about gurus, and the fact that you need a spiritual teacher as an intermediator on your path to self-realization. I never believed in it. I always thought that my connection with my path to self-realization has to be direct. Like, I wanted to train my inner teacher in guiding me and not have a guru like people, people call and they're like, oh, should I go for this college or that college? Or should I take this job or that job? Should I relocate, not relocate? And everything is so dependent on that teacher. I was fed up of all of that.
You tried that?
Yeah, I did. And I was fed up of that. So when he explained to me that it's very non-cultic, and the entire process is direct. It's your direct relationship with yourself, which you discover through self-observation. So the simplicity of it and the non-cultic nature of it really appealed to me. It really appealed and spoke to my ethics and the direction in which I knew that I wanted to go. Well, I don't think my family realized what I was getting myself into for a really long time, until I actually had to go, and they were like, what, you're not going to be in contact for 10 days? And I was like, yeah, 10 plus 2 days, actually. So that was a bit of a shock, but as I said earlier, that my family, for my family, spirituality is a way of life. Exploring your path to self-realization is a lifestyle in my family. So they were really happy for me.
Were they aware about Vipassana?
No, they weren't.
But I think I'm sure your mother would have been like really chilled about it, given the fact that she has been deep into spirituality herself, probably.
As well as not just that my parents are sort of already oriented into these kind of teachings, but also the fact that they'd seen me struggle a lot in the last few years, and they knew that I'm looking for something and it's really important for me. So they also connected to my struggle a lot.
Is somewhere all of these triggers of self-realization or trying to find something within yourself, or something is not adequate at this point within you, did it sprout from heartbreak somewhere?
No, it was a lot of other things. And for most parts, it didn't have a reason, which was even more terrible because you didn't have a reason to why you were sort of spiraling down.
And this spiraling down has nothing to do with your career. Your career is set, probably. You're doing what you wanted to do.
Well, no, at that point I was pretty confused. I was not into curation at all. I was really struggling with my life. I was super adamant that I have to be financially independent. So I was really struggling with my finances at that point, and I didn't want to take any money from my parents. So it was a really tough time for me not to be able to find anything personally and professionally.
On that first day,
Yeah.
when you entered, right?
Yeah.
What was that experience like? What happened there?
I think I had a very interesting question in my mind, which was, you live with yourself every day, but can you really live with yourself? That was the challenge I came with.
And then on that day one itself, like the noble silence begins, right? I think around 4 p.m. or something?
From the evening 8 p.m.
8 p.m., yeah. Did you have a separate room or were you sharing a room with someone?
I had a separate room.
You had a separate room. So that was good then. Were you actually feeling relieved that you have a separate room, or you felt like a person around would be good at least?
I'm very comfortable being by myself now. I've really taken the effort to grow into myself and connect with myself. I can almost say that I have a healthy relationship with myself, and I really like my own company. So no, I didn't. It wasn't a struggle. It was actually like, I love being by myself. I came from a strong place of self-surrender, and I think I had that faith to self-surrender because my friends had done it in the same center. So my faith in the organization and the teachers came from the fact that my friends had already experienced this and they have good experience here. So it was very easy for me to surrender.
And I think that is one of the most important things with something like this. Like if you don't have surrender, probably it's just a waste of 10 days and torture probably. When it started, right? They start with ANAPANA, right? So that whole process of ANAPANA, like what was your experience with that? Because did you have any experience with meditation before? Like were you used to even sitting half an hour in a position, not moving?
Yeah. I've been meditating as a child.
Since your childhood?
Yeah. So I was sort of used to sitting, but obviously not like more than an hour. When we began with ANAPANA, which is just observing your breath and just doing breath work for I think more than 3 days.
3 days, yeah, almost full 3 days.
Yeah, I was really surprised.
With
because
what?
I was like, with the simplicity of it. I was like, this is too obvious.
But then along with its obviousness, it does happen that when you actually start doing ANAPANA, right, for the first time, because I have not been a heavy meditator. I could sit like 20 minutes or something. I've tried some apps like Headspace and all. But when seriously I got into ANAPANA and I tried to do that, right, those sensations, and for the first time when I started feeling that, yeah, I'm going deep into it now. And it used to so happen that I almost used to pass out sitting. You know, I would go into sleep and I'll just wake up suddenly. Did that happen to you?
Yeah, of course, a lot of times.
It felt like I'm dreaming the entire time, like, because the thoughts do come,
I
right?
actually fell asleep.
Yeah. You felt like asleep?
No, like
momentarily, right?
Yeah, momentarily.
And then suddenly you feel a jerk and you come out of it.
You are asked to observe your respiration. You observe hardly 2 respiration and gone. This mind is gone somewhere. And after a long time you realize, oh, where it is gone? I was here to observe my breath, and again you bring it. Again after 1 or 2 breaths, gone somewhere. And again you realize and bring it back. And not only that, when you find this mind wandering again and again, a flickering mind, you feel so agitated. What kind of mind I am carrying? It cannot work this ordinary work just to observe. It has nothing to do. Respiration is there. It's not a breathing exercise that you get fatigued because of that. It is there. And your job is just observe. It's just happening. You are sitting on the bank of the river. The river is flowing. What you have to do? And still, it cannot do even this easy job. You feel very frustrated. You generate agitation, irritation. Oh no. Then you are going against the technique. This is your own habit pattern of the mind, that when something unwanted happens, you react. You react with irritation, with agitation, with negativity. And this is what you started doing. Now you want the mind to get concentrated, and look, it is not concentrated. So you start reacting. Oh no. The technique wants you just accept the fact. Mind has wandered away. At this moment, the mind has wandered away. Smilingly accept it, wandered away. Carefully, if you notice, you will find there are only 2 fields for this mind to wander. the field of the past memories, the field of the future.
These thoughts arise and they fall. Again, the fundamental concept of anicca. They are not important because they are impermanent, they are transient. They will come and they will go.
Ups and downs are bound to come in the life. Vicissitudes are bound to come in the life. If we keep on understanding, this will also change, this will also change. We have got that inheritance from the Buddha. Observe this reality inside, this will change. A very painful experience is there, oh, this will change. A very pleasant flow is there, oh, this will change. And this change is there, certainly. You are experiencing. Whatever the truth you are experiencing inside, the same truth gets manifested outside. This will change, and you maintain perfect equanimity of your mind.
In that transient nature of those thoughts, did you discover something that you probably were not actively or consciously aware of? Like, say, some strong feelings or emotions towards some people, maybe positive or negative. But if someone asks me, I can say that, okay, 70% of my thoughts were probably centered around one individual. There were goods and bads, but centered around one individual. And then there was certain fraction that was like dedicated to other important people in my life. Did you encounter something of that sort? That after the whole experience, you can now literally like chart it out like that. That, hey, this fraction of my mind is occupied with this particular thing or this particular person or this kind of emotion.
Absolutely. And you're sort of amazed to see yourself again. The question of, you live with yourself, but do you really live with yourself?
Yeah.
And you actually start living with yourself and you're so amazed to see what a petty human being you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And the anger, like what kind of emotion would you say was like one of the very prominent ones, like anger or complaining for something or asking questions or raising questions or some sadness or some frustration? What emotion did you realize? Because in those early days, especially when you're doing ANAPANA, right? In ANAPANA, it's very prominent, those things, because of course, you're new to the whole thing. So the mind is still at work. It's getting used to the whole process. Also, that is the time when majority of the stuff comes out, right? The way Goenka ji and the teachers, they used to say that man ka sara mail bahar niklega. So what was the biggest mail you realized that was coming out? Attachment. And attachment like with people, things, experiences.
Everything.
Yeah.
I think one of the major reasons why I came for Vipassana was to overcome attachment. Because I get attached very easily.
Did you realize that someone not so close to you, someone about whom probably you would not think so much, but probably you have some negativity or some kind of negative emotions for some particular individual or about some particular situation that you probably never addressed, and it comes out. And then literally because you're sitting with yourself and you're in that zone, you feel it fully. Like you get angry fully and you're like literally giving a piece of your mind to someone.
A memory will arise in your mind, this memory or that memory. At this moment, this memory, later on maybe some other memory. But some memory, it so happened. Oh, so-and-so insulted me in the past. So-and-so abused me. At that time I didn't know what to do. Now this fellow insults me. I will retort like this, I will reply like this, I will do like, and start rolling in future. And you keep on rolling in future. Again suddenly a thought of the past comes and you start rolling in the past. Again you jump to the future and you keep on rolling in the future. This is the habit pattern of my mind. It keeps on rolling in the past or rolling in the future. It does not want to live in the present.
I think I'd already gone through a lot of mess before I went into Vipassana. Like, by the time I went into Vipassana, I had already struggled for many years. I had done a lot of inner work. So for me, I understood a lot of things intellectually and I started experiencing them at the level of my body and mind when I started doing Vipassana. So for me, it wasn't so much anger at people, but it was me being very conscious that there is resentment.
Okay. There was resentment.
Can I do away with it? So for me, that was a pressing question during my sessions, that it's arisen and how will it go? So for me, it was very interesting to see when it fell. So for me, that rising was not so important, but the falling was very amazing. Was absolutely stunning experience.
And was there also like a really euphoric moment of happiness?
Yeah.
Sometimes suddenly like just coming out?
Yeah, same. Again, same. To have that kind of equanimity towards both positive emotion and a negative emotion, a happy feeling and a sad feeling, was very interesting for me. To see, to observe those things. So for me, as I was experiencing, I was also observing. So for me, the observation part was very interesting. When I saw other sadhaks who were far more disciplined than I was, so one would sort of wish, and the minute there is a wish, you would suddenly remember that rag, attachment.
Yes.
It's transient. It will go away. It has arisen. The wish has arisen, and it will fall. So you would sort of get attached to the wish, and the minute you'd get attached and you'd start drifting away with that wish, there would be one moment
You again come back.
where you would get back to your senses and be like, oh, I was observing, and this is the raga, this is the attachment that they were talking to me about. And that's when you start noticing that, okay, let me see how it falls. And then it would eventually...
Another reality will become clearer and clearer. Well, it wanders in the past, it wanders in the future. What kind of thoughts? Again, two kinds of thoughts, two patterns. Pleasant, unpleasant. When it rolls in the past memories, the memory may be pleasant memory or unpleasant memory. When it rolls in future, the thought of the future may be pleasant or unpleasant. So either it is pleasant or it is unpleasant. Then you will notice that when it has started rolling in something pleasant of the past or of the future, then a part of the mind has started reacting. I like it. Wonderful. This should happen again and again. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. This liking, it turns into craving. And it turns into clinging. And you don't know how you have lost the balance of your mind. You have become unbalanced, you become miserable, because you started craving, you started clinging. Similarly, when the mind starts rolling in a thought unpleasant, of past or future, you will notice a part of the mind will start reacting, I don't like it. And this don't like it very soon turns into aversion, hatred. And again you notice you have lost the balance of your mind, you have become very agitated. This is the present behavior pattern of my mind. It keeps on reacting with craving, clinging, aversion, hatred, which in the language of the days of Buddha was raga, craving means kraga, and dvesha, aversion. So all the time craving, aversion, therefore all the time agitated.
And at that moment, sometimes it feels like this whole circle, like which I just very caught at a very early stage right now because I was here and I knew this. But then this thing is happening with me, has been happening with me, and I'm letting those branches grow into like huge trees. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what you notice, that, my God, this body of 24 years old or maybe older has stored in so much. Has suffered so much. You sort of feel pity for yourself. That, my God, I have caused myself so much suffering. And it reminds me of what, there was one time I was listening to B.K. Shivani, and she was saying that every time you throw resentment at someone else, you project it at someone else, you first experience it yourself. So whether it be anger, whether it be resentment, whether it be disappointment, frustration, everything, you have to experience it first in your body before you throw it at someone else. And my God, how much we torture ourselves. And you really see it. And all these things you just hear at an intellectual level, but it's actually you sitting there, experiencing and observing it. And that's when you realize the pettiness of it all.
At the intellectual level, it is very easy. It is very easy to understand that there is a change taking place everywhere. And everything is so impermanent. Anyone who takes birth dies. Anything that is manufactured later or sooner or later gets destroyed. Everything is impermanent. But that is an intellectual understanding. Experience of it can be only within the framework of your body. The law of nature is law of nature everywhere, inside, outside. But the law of nature that you see outside can be acceptable, can be understood at the intellectual level. But the reality, the law that you experience within the framework of the body can be experienced. And this experience is called bhavanamaya panya. You are living there. You have direct experience.
At the end of ANAPANA, right? I think day 4 or day 3, it was the second half of day 3, they introduced Vipassana for the first time. By now, I think already a couple of things are like settled in your head. Craving, aversion, this duality is something that you don't have to go too far into. You have to somewhere stay towards the center and just be observant. And also like that whole law of impermanence, right? So that gets theoretically established, anicca, as a concept. But I think on that Vipassana day is when the real realization of anicca again starts happening at a much micro level. Because now I think you start with observing and going through your entire body in circle. Of course, for everybody, I believe that there are lots of sensations that must be happening, and some solid sensations and some fluid sensations and all sorts of sensations. So when Vipassana started, how did that play out for you?
I had gotten super bored with ANAPANA. So I was really keen on beginning with Vipassana. So I was very happy when we actually started practicing Vipassana.
After that first day of Vipassana comes the 5th day, which is like, I remember that day because that was the day. And you remember, right? Every day before you enter the Vipassana hall, there is like a message for you for each one of the days. And then day 5 is the day of strong determination, or what they call aditthana.
Yeah.
So now it's like properly expected of you to not move around at all. And you have to establish that self-discipline, that determination you have to show now. So that day 5, I was asking that before that day 5, did you already accomplished that sitting completely in that state for an hour? You know? And did they mention it out to you specifically on day 5 to be another time? And how did that go? Like, did you push yourself really that no? Now, because as they say, right? They talk about this in the session as well, that 40 minutes person is like, okay, I can do it. 45th minute is like, I'm dying. My legs are dying. They're killing me now. 50th minute, somehow the person manages. And then all of the subtle experiences, right? When you're sitting and then you would sometimes open up your eyes, look around. Everyone is like doing their thing. And then you're suddenly like, hey, what the hell am I doing? You go back in. Were you able to do a proper aditthana of that 1 hour on that day 5?
So when they tell us about the other rules, previous rules in Shil Samadhi, I was sort of very fascinated by the rules because I really wanted to try renunciation for once. And you hear about the life of a monk, but you actually don't know how difficult it is. And it is with aditthana that I really understood what it means to be a monk, what it means to be a nun. It was amazing for me. Like, the idea that this is expected of me overwhelmed me a lot in a really nice way. But doing it was difficult because your legs would start hurting and you've not done it before. But I somewhere felt that being able to have the discipline of aditthana for 1 hour would not just help me with self-discipline, but would help me with self-esteem.
Yeah, a lot.
Because then you understand that you can stand up for yourself, and if you have committed yourself to something, I can do it.
Yeah.
And that feeling of empowerment, of self-esteem was far more important than just having the self-discipline. So it did a lot many things than just self-discipline for me.
But then did it happen?
Yeah, it did.
Day 5, were you able to do it?
Yeah, I did it. I did it the very first time they asked me to do it. And then there were a couple of sessions where I knew I couldn't do it, and I didn't do it. I'm against the idea of self-torture, and for me it was becoming too tormenting. And I knew that if I keep doing it, this is going to give birth to more trauma.
Okay.
So when it had reached that point, I gave it up. But still, there would be every day. I would at least once a session. I would keep up the aditthana. At least once in a day, I would be able to do it.
The whole 1 hour.
Yeah.
Nice. Because I think I was able to do it just once till 55 minutes. And then I was really happy that, okay, I did that much.
Yeah.
And then after that, like, I tried it many times, but then some way or the other, like blinking of the eye or some itch or something or the other would come up, and then it would go off. But then on that day 5, right?
But I did notice that whenever there would be an itch, which is, I think, the most provoking of all. An itch is far more provoking than your legs hurting.
Yeah.
But if you stick with it, I noticed that it
fades.
Exactly.
It fades.
Just like every other sensation.
Yeah.
It would fade, and it was absolutely surprising.
And that's the proof right there.
Exactly. It's a living example right in front of you. You're experiencing what you've just heard in an evening discourse. It's truly a revelation.
Yeah. Rarely it happens that the theory and practical meet so real quick, right?
Exactly.
Technique is wonderful. There is no dogma involved in it, no blind faith involved in it, no cult involved in it. It's pure science of mind and matter, the interaction of mind and matter, how out of ignorance this mind keeps on reacting to these sensations, keep on generating negativities, and because of these negativities, more and more this particular type of sensation arises, and when that sensation arises, you more react with negativity, and this vicious circle will become miserable, more and more miserable. You start observing it, you start coming out of it. The law of nature is such that if you keep on reacting with negativity, you are multiplying your misery. You stop this reaction, you have started coming out of misery. And this has worked even in the past, this works now, this will keep on working in future.
Which was the most profound experience for you? So now you've started doing Vipassana, right? You're like now in full-blown cycle. Day 5, strong determination, aditthana has also happened. Which day for you was an experience that you really can recall as saying that this is something which I have experienced, I've seen, and it has never happened before?
Well, I always knew that my heart is super sensitive, and it's one of the few chakras that I actively feel a lot, which is why I also wear a crystal on it. It's a heart crystal. It's a kunzite. It's because I really feel it's the most important chakra. It's the most important part of my body. And just below your heart chakra is your solar plexus, just here, where you store a lot of your emotional commotion. So all your emotional commotion gets polluted here in your body. And on the 8th day, I started feeling a big hole here.
Okay.
It was like a black hole, and instead of sucking in, it was sort of giving away all the resentment, all the grudges, every little entanglement was suddenly just flowing out, and it wouldn't stop. But that big hole would just keep giving on and on. It was like a black river which just kept flowing out.
So what kind of sensation that materialized into?
Well, you sort of knew what it was.
Okay.
Everybody does. You know where the resentment is coming from. You know where the grudges are coming from. You know where the entanglements are. And how do you know that this is what it was? Because after it has happened, you know it's no longer there. So you know.
So after that day 8, you
exactly,
felt that...
you know that the river has flown out of you.
Okay.
Finally. You've read so many books about it. You've listened to so many discourses on YouTube about it, and nothing helps. And suddenly it's your light.
It's not there anymore.
Your light. That's the proof right in front of you.
And was it like once you finished one of the sessions and you just like?
No, it went on. That feeling in my solar plexus went on for till after Vipassana. So even after I was out,
Wow.
I could feel it.
Some kind of sensation that you can relate to.
It was a strong sensation.
Wow.
But I think what's really important to also share is that no two experiences are same. So while I may have gone through this, someone else may go through the same experience in a different way, or might not go through it at all.
Yeah, it's a very individual,
Exactly.
very
So
personal
it's even as I'm sharing my personal experiences, it in no way conveys the standards of what one can expect.
Of course.
Because there's nothing you can expect.
Yeah, I think that's the first point to get into Vipassana. That you first have to drop the expectations before you go in there, right? It's very interesting that you have a lot more clarity about what happened. With me, it has not been so surreal, I would say, that I could actually feel things going out of me or clearing me off. But I remember this one moment very, very clearly on day 5 itself. I was like, day 5 or day 6. I got late, first of all, to get into that group sitting. And I rushed, like I took a shower, I immediately rushed. I know like my hair was still wet. I could feel that sensation. I sat there, and that was like the first day when, I got into the hang of Vipassana, and I sat for that exercise over there in that group sitting. And that was the day, like in those first 5 minutes, I don't know how my mind got like so concentrated and focused that a little bit of movement in my pupil, right? Whenever you close your eyes and you sit. So it's not always that you just sit with stable pupils, right? I was moving my pupil and I could exactly feel like a little bit of movement in my pupil, which nerve in which finger is controlling that, like which is connected to that. And I was shocked because I have never had that. Like I never even considered that my eyes are connected like this and, moving my eyes. Like normally I don't feel it, right? Never do. But that day I could feel like rolling my pupils. I could exactly feel what nerve is moving in which finger. And that was like a really intense thing for me. Like I just could not fathom what was happening. And then those sensations, right? Those subtle sensations that they talk about. So I started having like a lot of this itchy, like, itch in my hair, in my head. Almost like, like tiny insects are like walking in my this thing, or like a slow massage is happening. And that thing did not stop. And I got scared of it because when I went to sleep in the night, it was stopping. How do I sleep if someone is like constantly massaging my head like that? And it's like a tickling, tingling kind of feeling. It's not going away. And then I go to the teacher the next day to talk about it. It's like, I want this thing to stop. It just can't go on. Sensation was fine when I was meditating, but I'm not able to sleep. And then he was like, oh, it will go away. It's a really good thing that you have those subtler sensations and not just heavy pain and heaviness and, the solidity. But I could not make out anything. I could not decipher why it was the way it was. But yeah, those two things I remember very prominently. That it just like stayed with me. That what happened there, I don't know.
Well, you don't need to decipher.
Yeah.
That's the essence of it all.
I dropped it there. So then you came to day 8, right? Like you had this really crazy experience on that day. And I think that was the day, as I understand, right? Like since then, that experience continued for you, right? Now, coming to the conclusion of the whole thing, right? So, day 9 is your final day. And then you must have heard in discourses also, Goenkaji mentions that day 2 and day 6 are 2 critical days in journey of sadhak in Vipassana.
That's when you feel that
most of the people quit. Yeah, most of the people quit either on day 2 or day 6. If you cross day 6, you're not going to quit. So, on like for you overall, right, in between the whole process, was there any day when there was a moment of second thoughts that, dude, you don't have to put yourself through this, probably you can walk out?
I never felt I wanted to walk out. I felt exhausted at points. But I knew that, like Goenka ji says, that it's a surgical operation
Of your
inwards.
brain.
And I took that very seriously. And for me, I knew that there would be consequences of quitting. So it was super important to stick it out, even if you were exhausted.
Yes, really important.
So I think that clarity I always had, that yes, I'm exhausted right now. Yes, I don't feel like doing it anymore. And at those points, I would just step out, go take a 1-2 minute walk, and come back and sit.
How's your breakfast experience there? Because it used to be like sharp at 8, I think, or 6, 7. I don't remember the time now. It was like 6 or 6:30.
Yeah, 6:30.
And then you all sit for the breakfast, and then it's like a very ascetic feeling you have, because no one's talking to anyone. You pick up your plates, you wash your plates. There's very minimalistic food out there. You take that food, you sit and you eat by yourself, and then that music starts playing. Like Goenka ji is like some beautiful things he says. Like I remember one of those. Like there's this Doha style where he just keeps reciting those things, right? And one of those was like, "Kabhi manchaha ho yahan, kabhi anchaha hoye, धूप छाँव की जिंदगी क्या नाचे क्या रोए," right? And for me it used to be like, this thing got stuck. Like I was so in awe of that quote that he made, right? Like kya nache kya roye, like the same thing, right? The craving aversion thing. But then for you in general, that overall breakfast experience and the food experience, how was that over there?
Well, it did wonders for me, because I had appetite issues before I went to Vipassana. And because I starved so much, I was able to kick my hunger cycle back.
Okay.
So for me, it did wonders in that sense. And I usually eat simple. So I'm a vegetarian. And I don't eat out very much. I prefer eating at home. So for me, it was simple. To eat at 6:30 was difficult because it's very early in the morning. So that was a little difficult. But
then you knew that you have to eat.
Yeah,
otherwise
you
the next
had
thing
to
is
eat, and your body wanted it.
Yeah.
So even as your mind was conditioned to say that, oh, I wish I had better food to eat, or I wish I had that to eat, or I'm craving this, your body was just starving. So you were happy, your body was happy with what you were eating, even if your mind wasn't. That's what is important. Because a lot of people have apprehensions about Vipassana, blowing it out of proportion, that it's impossible to do it. Well, it's not impossible to do it for exactly these reasons. Because they ensure that you're well fed, that you slept well, that you've rested well, despite the intensity of it. So I think that clarity needs to be there in people's minds, and that stereotype that it's impossible to do has to be broken. It's possible to do it. It's possible to eat simple food for three meals a day for 10 days. It's possible.
What is your final takeaway? Like if I ask you, right, what has Vipassana done for you? What would you say? What would that final takeaway be from that?
As I mentioned at the beginning, that the question and the challenge that I gave myself was, can I live with myself? And I came out with an answer in affirmative.
I think
so that was
great.
That was
Awesome, lovely.